Good evening, everyone. It's now 6:30. I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda tonight is announcements. The council will hold a workshop on Monday, October 24th at 5:30 p.m. to discuss the 2023 legislative priorities. Additionally, the council will hold a budget workshop on Monday, November 28th at 5 p.m. to discuss the 2023 enterprise and capital funds, the 5-year capital improvement plan, and the final general fund budget and levy. There will also be a special meeting of the City Council on Monday, November 14th at 5:15 p.m. for the council to canvass the 2022 election results. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone wanting to attend our council meetings or workshops in person to contact our city clerk in advance. Next on the agenda tonight are 2 proclamations. The first proclamation is 2022-07, a proclamation to recognize October 9th through 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the City of Victoria is committed to the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Victoria, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas the Victoria Fire Department responded to 372 calls for service in 2021, and whereas economic loss due to fire in Victoria was estimated to be $244,390 in 2021, and whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can and alert you to fire in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely, and whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in home fires in half. Whereas residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the alarms and knows how to respond. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas residents should make sure their smoke and CO alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas residents are responsive to public education measures, are better able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, effectively serves to remind us it is important to learn the different sounds of smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Deborah McMillan of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim October 9th through the 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week and urge all citizens of Victoria to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Victoria Fire Department and other emergency service organizations. The second proclamation, 2022-08, declares October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence, and whereas over 1.5 million high school students are physically abused by dating partners annually in the United States, and whereas more than 19,000 calls are placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide every day, and whereas the impact of domestic violence is felt not only by individuals and families, but communities and nations as a whole. And whereas Victoria joins with others across the state of Minnesota and nationwide in supporting domestic violence victims and survivors, the advocates and the organizations who serve them, and holding offenders accountable in Victoria. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Victoria City Council members do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda, please?
Motion to adopt the final agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our next item, which is open forum. Open forum is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. No one has registered to speak this evening, but if there is anyone in the audience who would like to address the council, please make yourself known. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Items on our consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. They're approved with one motion unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent agenda items for separate discussion and vote?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Council, anything from council that they wish to pull? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing no one, could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda, please?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. We are now moving on to our regular agenda. Item 6.1 is to consider approval of the final plat for the Brookmore development. Presenting this evening is Senior Planner Isaac Peterson. Mr. Peterson, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As the mayor noted, tonight we will be looking at the final plat for the Brookmore First Edition, which is being brought forward by U.S. Homes or Lennar, the first part of the development. So just looking back on how we got here, at the beginning of the year, an initial concept plan or sketch plat review occurred where there's a neighborhood meeting in early January that led into the Planning Commission and Council's review of the Brookmore sketch plat, and then ultimately the preliminary plat and rezoning request in May of this year by the Planning Commission and City Council. So tonight the City Council will be reviewing the first edition of the Brookmore plat, which includes 27 single-family home lots. So just to get a basis for where we're looking, we're over on just off of Cochia Lane, north of Holy Family High School in Savannah Valley, and south of 78th Street. The first edition, Brookmore First Edition site is the western portion of the property. That's just a hair under 14 acres, and concurrently, as was approved at the time of preliminary plat, there will be the planned unit development rezoning with underlying R1 underlying zoning in the area. I would note that the property is also guided within the comprehensive plan as low-density residential housing. So this is the area of the first edition plat that we'll be reviewing here this evening. Again, it's just the western portion of the whole Brookmore site, located west of Cochia Lane and south of 78th. So the zoning that's been proposed for the subject property and project are consistent with the Madeline Trail development that was recently approved to the north, that outlines just under 9,000 square foot minimum lot areas, 68-foot minimum lot widths, 130-foot lot depths, side yard setbacks of 9 feet on each side, and front yard setbacks of 25 feet, and rear yard setbacks of 30 feet, along with the impervious surface maximums of 4,500 square feet on each lot. In terms of buffers and screening on the plat, or shown within the plat and plans, you may recall that there's some discussion regarding buffering on double-fronted lots with this development. And although the portion or the subject area that was in question at the time is not being brought forward for final plat approval, staff has worked with the applicant to incorporate some minor undulating berming that's consistent with properties to the north, along with that thick, heavy landscape buffer on corner-fronted lots that are to be expected in the future along Cochia Lane throughout the development. That's shown on the right side of the screen there. The buffer plantings do meet all of the city's requirements on double-fronted lots, and the proposed landscaping widths also conform with code. And again, just a blown-up shot of the landscaping plan that's being presented for this Brookmore First Edition plat. There are also, I would add that the minimum lot plantings are met. And in addition, based on some comment that was received by the public at the time of preliminary plat, there's also been some incorporation of 14 additional landscaping screening trees based on the request of neighbors located further to the west that have been added to the plans as proposed. In addition, regarding Parkland dedication for this first edition of Brookmore, 1.26 acres of parkland dedication would be required per code. As the council may recall, there was some discussion on the location of a park on this development site because it was not initially called out on the comprehensive plan. At the time of preliminary plat, the city council did affirm to locate the park on the property based on its location and the desire to place it there. So with the proposed 2.72 acre park that's being shown, that of course is over what the city's parkland dedication requirement would be. Staff's intent in working with the applicant would be to recommend that that overage be applied to subsequent phased additions or addition of the Brookmore development to fulfill future parkland dedication requirements, whatever that may be at the time of subsequent additions platting. Regarding trails and sidewalks, there is, of course, a sidewalk proposed to loop around the Carver Court, as it's coined, cul-de-sac that's shown with the plat noted in red, and then a 8-foot bituminous trail noted in purple along Cochia Lane to the north. The trail along Cochia Lane is located on the eastern side of Cochia. And then to the south, over by Holy Family, the trail is actually located on the west side. So the proposed layout would be to provide that mid-block crossing to show some consistency with what's already located to the north and south, and carry that out through this development. And then in addition, there's a stub trail shown to provide connection to Savannah Valley and the trail network that's currently present to the south. Access is provided to the site from the stubs of Cochia Lane, just over by Holy Family here to the south, and then the portion of Cochia Lane that's currently under construction through the Madeline Trail development to the north. So the intent would be to provide that final connection that's been called out for quite some time of Cochia to have that full north-south connection as a collector through the area. The 27 homes that are shown within this plat on the Carver Court cul-de-sac are under the fire code maximum of 30 homes without having to provide a secondary point of access. And then again, the applicant developer, is proposing to build and construct that Cochia Lane extension through the development site, which would provide final connection from 86th Street to Highway 5 to the north. All local streets shown within the plat do include 60 feet of right-of-way and are proposed to be constructed to the city's standards. As you may recall, there was quite some discussion regarding the potential traffic calming measures, speed reduction measures presented at the time of preliminary plat, along with the traffic study that reviewed what some potential calming and mitigation factors could be. In working with the applicant, staff identified that the physical boundary and driver feedback of having an actual chicane or curve to the road that's designed to reduce speeds from around 20 to 25 miles per hour rather than a straight shot all the way through would be the preferred speed calming measure. And in addition, in working with one of the other suggestions of the studies, which was to provide a thick landscaping buffer and boulevard trees to greater reduce the lane width and feel, to make it a little tighter so folks wouldn't be driving quite as fast. Those trees obviously need to mature over time, but staff feels confidently in the chicane that's shown, and it's designed to really promote reduced speeds. And then in addition, there's some reduced lane width striping measures that will be pursued as well. Regarding site utilities, sanitary sewer is proposed to be connected from Cochilla Lane and Savannah Valley to the south. And similarly for water, the proposed plan does show sanitary sewer and water layouts consistent with city standards. With respect to stormwater, the property is located within the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District and is subject to their rules, and the project would be required to meet the requirements. The applicant has secured a stormwater permit from the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District to this point, I believe. The plan also does show stormwater features, wetlands, and buffers and outlots, which are proposed to be deeded to the city and not encroach on private lots, as is the city's standard requirement. So staff is comfortable with the proposed Brookmore first edition final plat, and believe it to be generally consistent with the preliminary plat approval that was granted in May. Staff does recommend, if the council desires to approve the development, approve with conditions, namely that the applicant address to the city's satisfaction all remaining items outlined within the latest city engineer response memo, that the city receive final construction plans for the extension of Cochilla Lane, and that the applicant construct Cochilla Lane as a collector roadway per the approved plans, that the applicant enter into a development agreement with the city for the development, but pay all applicable fees to the city and required financial guarantees to the city, that the development comply with the PUD district standards that were established, and complying with all requirements of the attorney's plat opinion prior to recording the final plat, that they submit and record any applicable HOA documents or covenants. I will note that we do not anticipate that this will be an HOA development. And then additionally, that they disclose and record a letter of interest outlining all requirements and standards within the PUD subdivision, as is the city's standard practice. That the applicant comply with all applicable requirements, reviews, and approvals for any desired entrance or monument signs, that they record the final plat with the Carver County Register of Titles within 120 days of the approval, and that the applicant furnish the city with certified Mylar copies of the plat, evidencing its filing with the county. I will note that a draft development agreement was included within my background staff report. There's one item that just to flag that needs to be reflected within the final plat, which is slightly new to the city. The property is actually owned by a different entity than Lennar, so we need to incorporate that within a consent form or some agreement and on the final plat itself, just to button that up and address that matter that was brought to staff's attention by the city attorney. So with that, Mayor, members of the council, I can certainly stand for any questions. Lennar and representatives of the applicant do join us here this evening if you have any questions as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peterson, much appreciated. Council, I open the floor for discussion. Any questions? Councilmember Black, please.
Could we look at the trail again?
Why does it jog over like that? It goes from the west to the east.
Yeah, Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council. So the trail is actually located on the eastern side of Cochia, all the way north to Whispering Hills. Actually.
Okay.
And then it jumps over by Holy Family because it's on the Savannah Valley side of Cochia, moving to the south. So there has to be some point where it gets over, and it's shown at this crossing to promote an intersection crosswalk rather than a mid-block crossing. So.
Is that 25 mile an hour there?
So it would be coming out of the curve. I don't know what the speed limit would be established off the top of my head on Cochia Lane, but it would be comparable to what's existing throughout the Cochia Lane corridor presently.
I'm trying to remember what the speed limit is there.
It's 25, yeah, because it's a city street, so it would be
Okay.
25.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Councilmember Black?
I was just wondering about all the trees on the corner. Are they going to be able to see to get to turn? Is it going to be visible? Are these baby trees?
Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council. So we believe that, in part, we want there to be some, for speed mitigation, some constrained view of not necessarily knowing 100% around what's around the corner. I don't think staff anticipates that it's going to be like a blind curve coming around. It's just going to feel a little bit more constrained than if you're just taking a straight shot down. But we did consider kind of the sight line looking into the intersection and actually push this curve a little further to the north than what was initially shown in concept to get a little bit of a better sight line looking into the intersection.
Will there be stop signs here? Will it be a four-way or two-way?
Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council. So I believe no stop sign is identified at this point. My understanding would be that the intersection would have to meet the city's stop sign warrant policy that's been adopted, but
What is that?
Well, if it's an intersection, you have to have one.
it'd be a side controlled stop. Sorry.
What? Kara, help.
Yeah.
Miss,
Good evening,
Miss
Mayor,
Guerin,
members
welcome.
of City Council, Kara Guerin, City Engineer. There will be stop signs on the side streets, but not on the through street of Cochia. If we wanted a four-way stop, it would need to meet warrants, the city's stop sign policy warrant for a four-way, which I don't anticipate it meeting.
Okay.
So.
Can you remind us of what that policy is? Or the four-way? Sorry. Sorry.
So
I tell you, the reason why I'm asking, you don't have to answer that question.
I
pull
can
back the
generally
question.
answer it. So the city stop sign warrant policy includes a whole bunch of different warrants, but I would anticipate the one that would be applicable here would be a local stop sign warrant. The way that's triggered for review would be if 50% of the property owners within 600 feet of the intersection petition for a stop sign. And then there's 9 different criteria we run through to see if it would meet that warrant. Regardless, if the petition's received, then that's presented to the city council to make a decision if you're going to establish it as a stopped intersection.
Okay. Yeah, so the reason I'm asking is I just wonder about the school traffic.
Correct, and that the warrant policy does include proximity to schools is one of the criteria. Another one can be proximity to a park. So, there might be an opportunity there between the park and the school if the neighbors nearby are supportive of said stop sign.
Yeah, 'cause
the policy could be
I
met.
live right there, and they do get going pretty fast. They're teenagers, and
Yes.
teenagers will be teenagers. And if there's nothing forcing them to stop, then they're definitely not going to stop.
Yeah, the challenge and the purpose with the stop sign warrant policy is to make sure that we put stop signs where they're needed. If they aren't needed, what you'll see, and I'm sure you see that throughout the community, is people don't stop. They just drive through the stop sign or roll through the stop sign, which then can create a safety challenge.
I never
for people
do
not
that.
doing that.
No one does.
Thank you.
I kind of wondered if we should just put up yield signs.
Cochia and 78th though would seem to be more warranted than maybe the Circle Street for a potential stop sign.
So certainly the same answer that I just described for that intersection would apply for that other intersection. We have talked about that intersection of 78th and Cochia might be one the council would want to consider for a roundabout, even a compact roundabout, particularly in conjunction with any improvements on 5 at those 2 locations. We did review that at the concept stage of this development, and there isn't enough right-of-way to consider building that today, so we would need to work on acquiring additional right-of-way. But certainly as that road goes through, I think that's an intersection that the council will hear quite a bit about, and is something that the council should give some thought to having us evaluate further as we look at transportation improvements in the future.
All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
As long as Kara's standing. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Council, other questions?
I just have a couple.
Councilmember Roberts, please.
So one is more of just a comment, just right. So we worked hard on the Bavaria East Trail for a long time, and this seems to be, although a little out of the way, like I'm assuming, right? Like once this trail is done, a little bit of a right, go down 18, go over Cochia, and then back up to Bavaria again, right? To kind of a workaround without having that east. So that should hopefully help a little bit. And then just, I'm just curious when, do we have when an estimated time where Cochia, like what's the time frame where Cochia would be fully open for public to start using? I'm just curious. Obviously it would be better before school, right? Like if there's some time where there's less traffic on there, I'm just curious when that is, like if we have an estimate when we think with the development, when that would be open.
Certainly, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor, members of the council, I would maybe defer to the applicant for insight on when they anticipate they could construct the road.
Welcome. Please state your name.
Good evening, Mayor McMillan, members of council. My name is Josh Metzer with Lennar. We're hoping to order a letter of credit and fees here tomorrow, if possible, and that usually takes a couple of weeks to come in. Once those are in, we've already negotiated out the development agreement. So we're hoping about 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, we'll be starting on street utility work. And it's our goal to get as far down the road as we can. Pun was not intended. And hopefully pave. I don't remember if Victoria is a certain date that we have to stop or if it's weather dependent.
Follows MnDOT's.
Okay. So if we can, that stretch of Cochia is fairly short. So if we can get our utilities in underneath Cochia and get them tested, then we can start paving, obviously on Carver Court as well. But our goal is to get at least the base course paved here before winter hits.
Okay. Terrific, thank you. All right, council, any other questions?
Question, and the houses that butt up to Savannah Valley, are those, do you know what those lot looks like? Are they flat lots? Are they walkouts? Are they lookouts?
All the lots on south side of Carver Court are full basement. So they'll be main level, second story above ground, and basement will be below ground.
So let me make sure I understand. Are there 2 levels above ground or just 1?
Depending on the floor plan, we do have a single story Rambler plan that would be 1 story above ground, but majority of our floor plans are 2-story.
There's no, we're not suggesting that those houses, so whoever buys them has a choice. You're not limiting Ramblers in that area.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Hebert, anything else?
Not at the time, no.
All right. Any other questions, council? Thank you. Thanks. I have a question for Councilmember Hebert. How's your dog feeling about this development?
He's fine. We were walking through it the other day. He likes to run around, but talk to me in a year when it's done. We'll see.
All right. Any other comments, council? Seeing no further discussion, I will take a motion.
Before we do that,
Oh, yes.
to
Mr. Peterson, please.
City Attorney Vos, just to check, and I know Marty did this a couple of times, we need 3 motions for this one, correct?
Yeah, Mayor, council member, staff, I think we need to approve the final plat, and I think we need to do the rezoning ordinance, and then I think you've got a resolution for summary publication.
Okay.
So there we go.
And Mayor, just because now Isaac baited me into actually saying something, I just want to acknowledge you've had a very well standardized development agreement, and I think we're hewing pretty close to that here, but I just want to acknowledge that Isaac has had to deal with me a little bit on this ownership of the land by one entity, and then Lennar U.S. Home LLC being the entity that's going to actually develop that land. That's a little bit unique. It's not unique in the world. That happens with some frequency in developments, but it's not the way we've had other Lennar developments before, and so that required a little bit of tweaking of the way the development agreement lays out and getting a consent out of the landowner. And then just, well, I've got the floor, the other thing just to acknowledge is that this idea of having a credit where initial phase of development puts in a little bit more parkland and or trail than would otherwise be required, and that add-on or that additional overage of parkland and trail gets credited against a future phase of development. That too is a little bit unique. We haven't done that much in Victoria, and so I think we've got a handle on that, but I just want to acknowledge what staff had indicated about that.
All right. Thank you.
I do have one more
Yeah,
question before we
Councilmember
go.
Rivera.
So on that south side of the new neighborhood, right? There's Savannah Valley, and then there's some, I guess, open space that isn't necessarily owned by various residents. If there's things that have been put on that property that's owned by the city, what happens if there's any conflict or any, I guess I don't know what the word is, but if there's a fire pit or a swing set or something that's on city property and it's right in between the two neighborhoods, is that anything that we need to be concerned of, or is that something that?
Mr. Peterson, are you going to take that one?
Absolutely. Councilmember Hebert, Mayor, members of the council, we've had some pretty significant talks about this particular outlot recently. Staff is actually engaged with quite a few property owners that do appear to have various sizes of fire pit within that outlot. The city's standard practice would be to remove said object within the property, and there's been some challenge with what that form of remediation or removal looks like. There's different options that the city could pursue. We actually have a note to talk with the city attorney about a couple of them in this area, but standard practice would be to let people know to remove them from the area. Although we do know that there's been some fire pits in this area that have been there for probably more than 15 years to date.
So what does that mean then?
So do they grandfather in?
Council, mayor, members of the council, generally no, you cannot grandfather in an encroachment on public property because it's public property. It's just a matter of going through the enforcement cycle and working with.
So are we requesting those residents to remove those?
Yeah, we've initially requested that residents with items in the outlots, like all outlots, remove them from the outlot, or if there's a desire from the resident to do something else, we'd have to look at that. So. And
so is that being required before this development goes in, or is that just a general rule that the city has?
Yeah.
It's not dependent upon the Brookmore development, or it is?
Councilmember Hebert, mayor, members of the council, we would express that to any resident with any encroachment within an outlot. The city has a few hundred outlots, and one of the exercises staff has been working on throughout the summer is to better inventory, track, and maintain and monitor where some encroachments are happening so that they're not there for 15 years. So that's something we actively do all the time, irregardless of development.
Thank
All right, with that, council, I will take the first of three motions, please.
Motion to adopt attached ordinance zoning Brookmore First Edition as planned unit development.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Second motion, please.
Motion to adopt the resolution for summary publication of ordinance.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the final, please.
Motion to adopt attached resolution approving final plat for Brookmore First Edition with conditions noted.
We have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There are no more items on our regular agenda this evening, so we'll move on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, you're up first. Anything from you?
Mayor, I don't have anything to report, thanks.
All right, you used up all your words for today.
Again, yes, all my words, all 40 of them.
All right,
Done.
very good. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Nothing from staff, although I do have a question. Who seconded that motion? Was that Councilmember Black?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, terrific, and all is good with you? All right, very good.
Thank you.
Council, any reports from council this evening? Councilmember Black, please.
I just wanted to give an update regarding Lynn Olson with the Toys for Tots.
Oh, great.
He has been able to have about 33 businesses put the Toys for Tot boxes around the city. And he'll be getting those out a few days after October 1st. And he's really excited about this. He's doing a toy drive at Deer Run on November 26th. We're thinking about, we're okay with when we do our light December 1st, what is it, Light Up Victoria. He's going to be there so that the businesses can bring all the toys. And then on, where's the rest of it? He's doing one more thing with a hockey tournament on December 2nd and 3rd. So his goal is to get 2,000 toys, and I think he's going to reach it.
All right, let's help him out.
I'll just keep you updated.
Great, terrific, thank you. Okay, let's represent for Toys for Tots from
Yay.
Victoria. Council, any other reports?
I'm here.
I will just note that this Wednesday night is our final Victoria Night Car Show, so let's send them out with a bang. That was just a wonderful summer activity in downtown Victoria. So no more items to come before the body this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.